I'm here with Greg, and we're over at BodyScience down in Miami. And it's our pleasure actually to have you a second time. You were here for 2 weeks. I think it was March.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and then you came back. We're just finishing up 3 weeks now. So you came back about 3 weeks ago. And let me start by saying, Greg, I really appreciate you doing this video. So the purpose of this video is there are so many folks that are out there with ALS or motor neuron disease, and they have all kinds of questions about therapy. And because you've been here twice, with a third time coming up, you're kind of in a unique situation as far as answering the kinds of questions that you had before you came, and a lot of other people have. So again, thank you for doing this. Okay, and then you want to just kind of walk us through and explain how things have been for you.
Yeah, I came in March, and I was in the different chair, and the first thing that you guys noticed was I had high blood pressure
Yeah.
and high A1C. Until we fix that completely, and I was able to take those things home with me and keep my A1C and blood pressure under control. And I am off any medication at this point for both. I was able to move much better after the first 2 weeks I was here. And I'm still able to do a lot of things. However, I was a little overzealous in my plan, and I had a surgery, a pretty in-depth surgery, to place a baclofen pump intrathecally. After the surgery, I stayed in the hospital bed for almost a month, which almost killed me. So, I had a very depressed state of mind afterward. And I lost most function. I could not shut the controller on my new chair. I couldn't drive. I could barely speak. I couldn't breathe. I had mucus coughing up in my lungs. I couldn't sleep. And so when I got here, I was in dire straits. And for the first 2 days, I cried. I couldn't put together a thought without crying. I thought, this is it. I'm done for. And Amy came to me and said, you're not done. Well, let's put together a plan. And let's get your head right. And let's take it from here. I've already seen you in the March, so I know what we have to start with. And let's build from there. My muscles were atrophied badly. and my thighs. And I noticed that the muscle on the side was indented. And I could like squeeze my leg, and I've always been a big guy, and I could like squeeze the muscle, which also got me concerned, because I have had very little atrophy in over 2 years. Largely because of BodyScience practices and my mad scientist ways. So, Dr. Alex came in and said, "We'll fix that." And I'm thinking, there is no way. Because once the muscle starts going, I don't know, but I felt like it's gone. 2 days later, last week and the week before, he gave me injections in my whole legs. I was noticing today. They're solid, and the muscle is thick. Like I can hold more weight. I can push myself up, which was a concern because transitioning my wife, who is my rock, had to pull me up more when I don't have my lift. But today, I popped up and stayed up, and actually I've been doing that all week. So I feel like I can make gains with a PT and OT where I couldn't before. And then going forward, I'll be leaving with things to help me maintain. This week and the last 2 weeks, I've been working on this chest congestion. And I couldn't take a breath without coughing, and I haven't coughed in several days. And the treatment are geared toward me. Every morning when I come in, I hear all this chatter coming from this room as I pass by. And I know that they're discussing me and the others here and making a plan based off of what they've seen before, what I'm able to do. And every day there's an adjustment that we go over and add more treatment to the regimen. I know that I've seen the videos before, and I will wonder, like, well, does it work? And I would say being here for the second time and being here, planning to be here in the future, Amy has given me a reason to fight, a real reason. I was fighting a thought before, but a real reason backed by science. And she's willing to put in the work. And they are everybody here is so welcoming, and if you go back and watch the videos, it's not hype. So we've been doing things to basically try to figure out where my ALS came from, or what's inside of me that I was exposed to, and have a game plan forward to treat it, which is something I've never heard anybody say. So, do you have any other questions?
Okay, so
I know I hijacked, but I'm excited.
You're amazing. I can't thank you enough for just the honesty and just kind of the blow by blow. Okay, the couple of things. For a lot of folks, their question is, why would we even care about blood pressure and A1C the first time around? And so on our side, as long as you have inflammation, we're never going to get muscles to grow. We're never going to get neurons healthy. And so a metabolic indicator like blood sugar and blood pressure have to be managed not by medication, but actually through healthy mitochondria. So the first time around meeting, that became a big priority. And kind of the crazy thing, when people have motor neuron or the diagnosis of ALS, they'll have those other secondary health-related issues, and it just goes completely untreated, but that stuff is really important. And again, not to medicate, but to alleviate the inflammation until those metabolic markers have come down to normal. So that for me is a really big priority. I would say we've done injections, but the mainstay of the treatment over here has been IV. So we used to have a very injection-driven protocol, and the problem I had with it was longevity. So moving to more of a mitochondrial fix, and a lot of the IVs that we hang during the day, people will ask when they call, how long am I there during the day? And I'll tell them, and you know it, we'll bring you in, and then we'll put some things on board, and as you respond to those things, we'll hang even more bags until we've treated every part of the cell and you're better and better. And so sometimes it'll be a short day, but in truth, the more stuff that we could put on board,
the better.
Yeah, because the stronger you are. I think when you first came back this time too, that was horrible. Like you looked, I think about how much louder your voice is.
And clear.
It's super clear, it's super loud. I think about, will you tell the story about you and Dusty holding hands? That's probably, in forever, that will probably be the story that I love the most about what I do.
So we drove down here, and I wasn't able to move my hands much. And really over the last couple of years, I haven't been able to extend my hands or lift them quite well. And the other day we were driving, and she put her hand on my chair arm, and I don't know why, but I lifted my hand over hers, and we held hands, and we continued to do that. And for caregivers and spouses, well, caregivers / spouses, we can't, as LS patients, I won't generalize, I could not I could not hold her hand or hug her very well. She could make me hug her, but I couldn't voluntarily. So little things. Yeah. There was something else.
You're pulling up your own covers at night.
Yeah.
You want a drink?
No. Yeah, the other night, I was like in my chair, and I got cold. I used this on to adjust myself in my remote, and I was like, I'm just too cold because we have the AC blasting. And so I was like, I'm gonna try. And I grabbed the cover and I used my arm to pull it up and it went. Then I was able to take it in my left arm and drop it over the side of the chair, which I wasn't able to do. And then my hands opened up. And I did that all night long. I just kept bringing it up and dropping it. I couldn't do it before. And there's all kinds of stuff now. I'm driving my chair onto the elevators by myself, backing up. When I got here, I could barely. My wife had to put my hand onto the remote and hope I didn't put a hole in the wall or run over her feet. Now, I'm flying and getting stuck and going off-roading in the mud. But all in all, we've done something over the last 3 weeks. It's priceless to me. So I keep coming back because I feel like I have hope, which I lost at the hospital. And then now I'm taking medicine. That was the first thing that they did here, was take care of my depression. And I would never admit otherwise, but I was depressed. And I gave up. And I felt my body and mind sliding downward rapidly to the point where I was like, there is no reason to fight. It's done. This is what all the people have been talking about. It's a game over. Paralysis, speechless. My voice was gone.
I remember you said the other day you feel human again.
I do. I feel like, no, I think I said, I'm learning now to try to be human, because I'm in this chair, which I didn't want to get into, but if my wife or somebody was out there, I would have them come in and do a meaningless task, or I would wait for whatever to come to me like I wasn't a person anymore. But I started understanding that if I didn't have this disease, I would go to you. I would walk over to you and ask you a question. I would not just stand there and wait for the next move, so to speak. I would be proactive. And somewhere along the way I lost that. I would just sit in the same spot in the room and wait for people to come to me. But I'm a human, and I have rules, and I can go places. I can go and see if you need something. Little things.
But it's not even little, because imagine you have your voice back, and now you've got your independence back with the chair. I knew there was a change. It was probably last week, because I saw you and I said, "Hey Greg, how are you doing?" And you said for the first time, "I'm good, Amy, how are you doing?" It was like a whole different version of, yeah.
I've always been a caring person, but I lost it. It was very like, I don't exist.
This disease is such a roller coaster. And so the lows can be so low. And I know when you came this time, again, that was just, I think, your lowest. But it didn't change the fact that it's just a tiny piece of time, and now we really do just rebuild. And you're stronger now than before you came for the first time.
Yeah. Maybe not physically.
What do you think? You think there are areas that are worse? You think there's...
Well, the surgery
yeah.
affected my muscle to where I have this lean. I now lean. When I stand up, I crumble because I have this metal piece in my stomach.
Yeah.
So, Amy told me not to have the surgery.
No, listen. When it comes to motor neuron, you do anything that you think is gonna help, and so I totally get that it felt like it was gonna be a good move. And who's to say over time maybe it is? Hard to know, but
Well, my symptom primarily was spasticity, and it was violent and strong and severe. I would sweat every night,
yeah.
shaking and vibrating and clenching my muscle.
Yeah.
And you couldn't bend my legs at all.
Yeah. We know now, so when you first came, you still had a lot of spasticity, and then we saw somewhere towards the end of the first week some of that spasticity resolving. So we know that mitochondrially, something is responsible for that spasticity, and now we wait to see how much it resolves moving forward.
Well, the pump was supposed to resolve it, and they increase it and increase it.
Yeah, you're talking about the baclofen pump. The goal was intrathecal baclofen, and so yeah, I know you went in for the pump, but the disuse of being in a bed for a month is brutal. And then you came out, I know, expecting that the spasticity would be alleviated, but you didn't see quite what you'd hoped for. No, I know. Again, people try all kinds of things. I would tell you, I'd probably be doing the same, right? If you can't find a solution, you start trying things. And again, there's nothing to say what's right or wrong, but the disuse, that was really bad. And so now we look to just get you back to where you were.
Yeah.
Yeah. When you came in, so just kind of going back to on my side where things get started, you had that high amplitude tremor. Let me think about this. It was your lefty. It was your left hand. And then we realized that what you had was benign tremor, just benign idiopathic tremor, and then look to resolve it. And so just going back to whether it's blood sugar, whether it's blood pressure, whether it's all the other conditions, yeah, to your point about being a human, the fact that you have the diagnosis of ALS doesn't stop that, not on the clinical side, because imagine, like on your side, because you can't communicate and you can't get over to somebody. And again, on the clinical side, oftentimes things that can be corrected just are overlooked. And then we can't build on the actual next step, which is muscle and nerves, because there's all this inflammation. And the fact that you had an essential tremor is very, very difficult to live with. So just resolving things that can be resolved becoming like super important. For me, it's like our starting point.
Right.
What can we fix? What's low-hanging fruit that we would fix for anybody, whether they had this diagnosis or likely that they don't. They don't have this diagnosis, but they have this other health situations. So we fix them because they should be fixed.
As I was trying to get doctors to do for years. I mean, who has a 180 over 90 blood pressure at the doctor's office, and they say, we should look at that.
Yeah.
What about your ALS? Do you have this yet?
Right. Because imagine, whatever is causing the inflammation, it is surprising the number of folks that come here with ALS that have elevated blood pressure, but we'll ask them, they didn't have a history before diagnosis. And we use it as, again, an indicator of how metabolically inefficient that person is. And we don't turn to building muscle, building neurons, until we have the metabolic side of things under control. And so we'll look for people to go to whatever they were normally at, blood pressure wise, before they were diagnosed. And it typically takes about a week over here of doing that again, getting into the mitochondria and almost retooling it so that it works better. And we'll look at markers to make sure that we actually have that. And then once we're there, I don't remember putting anybody over here on medication, because once inflammation is resolved, those numbers go back where they belong on their own. And that's kind of our signal to know, okay, now we could turn the corner and start getting neurons and muscles healthy, because we don't have this ongoing inflammation. And then the second time that you came, that's when we had a really clear idea of what was causing the inflammation. The first time was doing tests. The second time is, okay, we can see it, now let's treat it. And I think that's the reason this time, the improvement as far as putting your arm over the bed, putting your legs over the bed, because now we're actually at the root of what was causing the inflammation, not just band-aiding it.
Yeah, I've learned a lot this past 3 weeks about myself.
Yeah.
With my incontinence, we've basically found out that I cannot have anything to drink with dyes or preservatives, and if I do, it's gonna be a long night.
So that was a really interesting thing. When we first met, you had mentioned that early on in your diagnosis, incontinence became a problem and pain around the genital area. And I remember you saying to me, hey, is this part of ALS? Is this what's causing ALS? And for me, I mean, it's such a logical question. And it's such a logical relationship, right? You get a symptom and you get this disease at the same time. I have people ask me all the time, like I got a tick bite and then I developed ALS. Or I was exposed to metals and I got ALS. Is there a relationship? And I would tell you, I mean, that's the most logical, so we might as well go down that road. So we talked the first time about the idea there's likely an infection. We started to treat the infection, so we know it's there. We started to treat, and one of the first things that resolved was the incontinence. So then I remember you coming back in and saying, look, I can sleep all night long now and not wake up to urinate. And then I agree with what we figured out over the last 2 days. So after about a week, right, of incontinence having resolved entirely, and you sleeping the entire night without having to void. And then we realized the preservatives, additives, when you add those at nighttime, it triggers that response and you just become inflamed.
Anytime.
Yeah, yeah.
I can't have it. And that's hard for me because these 2 years I resolved to try to do whatever I wanted. And what I did in the past, but Amy smacked my little hand and said, no, don't do it.
If anybody is a mad scientist, it's you. If there is somebody that would put anything into their body before coming here, it was you. And again, I recognize, and I'm not saying that I would take any different approach, when you're facing a diagnosis of motor neuron or ALS and you can't find a way to get better, you start experimenting on all kinds of things. I'm glad to get you out of experimental phase and into treatments that actually are showing improvement. Because again, I think about the first time, just kind of getting a sense of who you are, what the symptoms are, resolving all the things that are getting in your way that actually can be fixed. And then really drilling down with a lot of labs to get a sense of what the underlying problem is. And then coming back, having the 3 weeks to address that underlying problem. And then seeing the symptoms abate as we do. So we know we're in the right place. And then the reason that you'll come on back is now that we can see things so clearly, we're putting a handful of technologies together for the next visit because we can see the underlying problem to actually start resolving it in a more permanent fashion. Yeah.
But now it's on me to continue the discipline that you gave me.